Do you homestead in grizzly bear country, or are you thinking about it? Well, there are 6 things you need to know before you get started. Hello everybody, welcome back to LocaCarnivore. Glad you could join us, and we're talking about homesteading in grizzly bear country. I even have my Grizz Country chest rig on, and we'll talk to you about that in just a little bit. But we're going to talk to you about today, about the 6 things that you need to know if you homestead in grizzly bear country. Now, I've homesteaded in grizzly country for almost 20 years now, and I've learned a couple things here and there, and those are the things I'm going to share with you. And the most important thing will be at the end of the video, so stick with us all the way through. And while you're at it, don't forget to give us a big like, thumbs up, make sure you subscribe. We'd love to have you on the LocaCarnivore team, and of course ring that notification bell so you get notified every time we come out with a new video. What's so important about homesteading in grizzly country that's different than homesteading somewhere else that doesn't have grizzly bears? Well, basically, you have to realize you're not necessarily the apex predator in that environment. There you have company at that niche in the environment, and you need to learn to deal with those animals because in the wrong circumstances, they can be incredibly dangerous. Now, this is not a big video about how to walk through grizzly country and not get attacked and all that sort of stuff. That's a different subject. We're talking about on your homestead, how to deal with grizzly bears, how to be ready for them, how to prepare your property to deal with grizzly bears. That's what we're talking about today. And we employ what are known as the 4 Ds of defensive warfare. That is detect, deter, deny, and defend. We're going to cover each of those in detail here. And the first D we're going to talk to you about is detect. And this is really the most important one because the most dangerous grizzly bear is the grizzly bear you don't know about. And the biggest way you can defend yourself is to find the grizzly before the grizzly finds you. Most grizzly bear attacks, or bear attacks in general, occur because bears get surprised. They didn't know you were there, and you suddenly showed up in the middle of whatever they were doing that day, and they got really grumpy about it. So knowing where the bear is, or rather being able to detect the bear before the bear gets in range to harm you, is very important. You may be asking yourself, well, LocaCarnivore, how do you detect grizzly bears? Well, if you're on your homestead, one of the biggest things you can do is have a cleared zone, what's called a dead zone, around each of your structures. I like 50 yards as a minimum distance because a bear at full chat running along, they're at 35 miles an hour or even a little bit better. So that is 1.5 seconds to cross 50 yards. So that's not a lot of time, but it is at least some time versus they're just right on top of you. Other helpful things, useful things you can do, you can have motion sensors like motion sensor alarms, driveway alarms, that sort of thing. You can put them in strategic locations. It's typical approach avenues or places that a bear might come out of. Let's say your homestead is near a water course, a stream or something like that. Well, bears love water areas, so you would want to put that alarm in that area so that you can get a audible tone or some sort of alarm goes off when a bear comes through the area. The other thing you can do is have good lighting around. Now, that won't necessarily scare a bear off. Bears aren't scared about lights. I've had them come right up on my front porch with the porch light on, and that's an amusing thing when that happens. It definitely gets your undivided attention, let me assure you. But the light lets you see the bear. Now we're getting into that detect concept again. Can you see the bear before the bear sees you? Another thing to think about is putting in wireless security cameras. They've got very affordable ones now. They're solar powered, so you don't have to run a lot of electrical lines around and things like that. And that way you can, like if you're at your computer or something, or you're on your phone, you can pull up that cam before you go to that area, or say it's on the other side of the building and you're coming out and going around. You can pull that cam up real quick, take a peek, and that way you know if there's a bear there or not a bear there. All right, we talked about detecting the bear. Now let's talk about the second D, deterrence. So when we talk about deterring the bear, we're talking about eliminating needs or things that would bring the bear in, something that would attract the bear. And the biggest thing you can do is eliminating scents that are going to attract the bear. Bears have the best mammalian nose on the planet. They can detect, say, blood in the air at the same concentration that a shark can detect blood in the water. You're talking about the best nose in the business, and it's not easily fooled either. So what we want to do is make sure that if we have food out or something, it's stored up like in a high cache. It depends on your homestead situation. Another thing you can do is use bear-proof trash containers. If you have curbside type service, depending on where you're homesteading, ask your provider, your trash pickup provider, for a bear-proof container. Yeah, you might have to spend a little extra money, but what's a few extra dollars a month compared to getting your leg chewed off or your rib cage crushed in by a grizzly bear, or worse yet, that happening to one of your family members, or having your livestock killed. If you are a hunter and you either hunt on your homestead or you bring your game animals back to your homestead, eventually you should have to, I suppose. If you're going to gut them, if they haven't been gutted yet and processed, field dressed, if you're going to do that on your homestead, do it inside a building, either inside your residence or an outbuilding, whatever. That really helps encapsulate that scent signature and keeps it out of the general airflow around the property. Or if that's not practical, the other thing you can do is make sure that you're doing this field dressing a minimum of 100 yards away from any dwelling or outbuilding. And don't leave the gut pile. Clean it up, put it in, again, that sealed bear trash container. Most trash companies will allow you to dispose of certain amounts of carcass material and stuff. So bag that up, encapsulate it, and then further encapsulate it in that bear-proof container. And then the bear-proof container, trash container, is inside the outbuilding. So you see how we encapsulate and keep that scent signature minimized. If you have livestock, particularly horses, you want to clean up their leavings, their droppings, every day as often as possible, because that can bring bears in. We had a bear get into one of our horse corrals one night, and because what they do, the wildlife biologist at the game department explained, there is undigested grain. Even if you're only feeding hay, there's seeds and stuff in those droppings, and the bears smell that, and they like that. They'll come in, and they're kind of like a dog in that way. They will come in and try to eat that. Now, the bear that got into our corral, at the end of the session, he got in with my old Morgan horse, and she, I kid you not, she kicked him out of the pen. I never saw a bear get out of an area that fast, ever. She just gave him a number. I didn't know whether to call him an ambulance or what. All right, we're going to get into the third D here, deny. But before we do that, real quick, just wanted to let you know, hey, if you want some more content, we've got it over our LocaCarnivore website. Links down in the description, go on over there. We also have a store tab. When you're there, you can get nifty merchandise. We'd appreciate that support too. So we're talking about denying access, and that is that D. Third D is deny, and that is to physically prevent whatever is outside or harmful from getting to you or whatever you're trying to protect. In the case of homesteading, one of the biggest things is usually most homesteaders have livestock. In many jurisdictions, there is a principle of law that is applied that is called, and this is not legal advice, I'm not an attorney, but there's a principle that's called fencing out. You, as the owner of the livestock, as the property owner, are responsible for fencing off and keeping out whatever is harmful. So you are obligated to provide a barrier between wildlife, basically, and your livestock. So you need to put up a good stout fence, and I would recommend using an electrical fence. And it's not just enough to run like a wire around the top to keep the critters in. You also need to put in what I call a nose wire, and that is a wire around your fence that's on the outside of the fence and about where the level of that bear nose would be. So he gets a good shock, he or she gets a good shock when they try to investigate your livestock and they are looking around the fence for a way in. That will keep them away. Make sure you get an electrical fence that makes enough energy output that will actually shock a bear. And bears do most of their hunting primarily nocturnal or crepuscular, which means that they move around at dawn and at dusk as well. So that's generally the time that bears are most active. So you want to, again, shelter your livestock and your poultry at night. If you have a relatively large property and you move around a lot, in vehicles and stuff, consider always being in an enclosed vehicle, a truck or a car, whatever. In fact, there was a fella just outside of Cody, Wyoming. This is a number of years ago, maybe 10 years ago or so. And he was out on his ATV riding around his property through the sagebrush, and he bumped into a grizzly sow with cubs with predictable results. The sow just came up and took him right off the ATV and beat the holy bejeebers out of him. The fourth D, as we said, is defend. And this is where we have the, you go hands-on basically, you're engaged with the bear. There's a lot of discussion about, what's best as far as lethal and non-lethal intervention, everything like that. But before you get into the discussion, we get into the groovy geek stuff of the hardware and all that, you need to become familiar with, wherever you live, the laws that affect your conduct in regards to defending yourself against a bear. And you have two tiers of laws. You have whatever your state might levy on you, and then you have the federal government, because grizzly bears are a federally protected species in most areas. If you're not sure, go ahead and talk to your local game department. They can usually fill you in. Which brings me to another thing. Make friends with your local game warden or your game department and talk to, most places in grizzly country, they have a bear biologist on staff. Get to know that person. They are a wealth of information. Another big principle of the defend part of the paradigm is keep your defensive equipment on you at all times when you're outside. This means even if you're just stepping out for, I got to go check on this, or I got to go out to the car and get something, whatever it is, have something on you, whether it's just a can of bear spray, your handgun, or whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can choose to have your equipment on you all the time. It's a little cumbersome to walk around the house all day with like this chest rig. I mean, admittedly, this is for when I'm going outside, I'm going way out, hunting, hiking, whatever it might be, scouting, whatever. So that's what this rig is for, but gives you a good idea of what's available. Now, if you would like to see how I put this rig together and the changes and upgrades I've done over time, I've got 2 different videos. Links are down in the description. You can go down there and check it out. Appreciate that. One way I've found that makes it very convenient to have your defensive equipment on you is what I call a bear battle belt. And I've got another video about that too. So if you want all the geeky details, go down the description there, go check out that video. But this is a bear battle belt. It has a holster for your firearm, pouch for bear spray, and then a tourniquet, and then also pouches for extra ammo. You should always have a reload on you, in my opinion. But the nice thing about this is you can, instead of having to wear a holster on you all the time or whatever, and then the bear spray and everything, you can just put this on you very quickly. Just go ahead and, throw it on, snap it on when you're going out. Then when you come out inside, take it off, put it in a safe spot. Make sure if it's got a firearm that's properly contained and stored. And for your situation, do have a tourniquet on you. Many bear attacks usually end up with the extremities of the person, arms and particularly legs, being chewed on rather severely. And those big teeth of those bears, they can get in there. They could easily nick an artery or something. So you want to have that tourniquet so you can apply that and treat yourself immediately in the field. All right, let's move into one of the areas I'm sure you're just dying to learn about is all the hardware, the groovy stuff, the height, the guns and everything, and what do I carry. And so I'm going to give you my recommendation. You want to have different levels of escalation because every bear encounter doesn't necessarily mean you have to shoot the bear dead on the spot. So you want to have that less lethal, like bear spray, or the lethal option too. Why do I carry both? Well, in my opinion, if something's capable of killing me, it's only fair that I have the ability to kill it if necessary. Don't want to do it, but you need to have that capability. The nice thing about being on the homestead is you have more options as far as the firearms you can have available to you for the lethal end of it. You don't have to just rely on a handgun. Handguns, I don't care the caliber unless you're up into the really super mega magnums. They just don't have the power that a long gun does. So it's good to have a long gun. What do I recommend? Always, first and foremost, 12 gauge shotgun. You're going to load that shotgun with Brennicky slugs, not the standard deer hunting slug, which are called Foster type slugs. You want a Brennicky slug because those will penetrate, break bone, and they won't deform like a soft lead slug will. And by the way, while we're at it, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and share this video. And of course, what do you think about homesteading in grizzly country? What are your thoughts on that? We'd love to hear it. Go down in the comments, let us know. Those comments help us make better videos for you. Well, like I said, we talked about the shotgun, but then there's also the thing of I like to have a good heavy stopping rifle around. What do I mean by a stopping rifle? Stopping rifles are different than typical hunting rifles. Stopping rifles are designed to break or turn a charging animal, a big heavy animal like a bear. So we're talking pretty good sized calibers. Think African stopping rifles, think African capable cartridges. At a bare minimum, .375 Holland & Holland.
375 Holland and Holland.
And you can also consider something in the 416s or the 458 range. Any of those calibers will work just fine for you. Another good cartridge is the 4570 if it's loaded correctly and in a modern firearm like the Marlin lever action or something like that. Now, if you can't afford or don't want to have that heavy stopping rifle, and they are expensive to feed, the ammunition is insanely expensive these days, but you have to rely on just a traditional hunting rifle. I'd like to see you with at least a 308, preferably one of the Magnums, like a 300 Magnum, one of the 300s or one of the 338s, something in that general range. 8mm Magnum, if you can still find the ammo, that old Remington round, terrific round. Also 35 Whelen and 338-06, those are all good. 450 Bushmaster, any of those are good cartridges as well. Well, that's the long guns. Let's talk about the handguns real quick. You want, in my opinion, at a minimum 357 Magnum, and even better than that would be 10mm, 41 Magnum, 44 Magnum. I don't think you need to go for the super heavies like the 454 Casull on up into the 500s, those sorts of things, the 460s, unless you are dealing with coastal brown bears in Alaska or Kodiak bears. And the most important thing, regardless of whether you're talking about the handgun or the rifle, it's not so much the caliber, it's the bullet construction. You need a heavy bullet that is going to penetrate well. You don't want a hollow point. You want something like a hard cast lead or full metal jacket if you can't get that, or you don't like it, whatever it might be. Full metal jacket, as flat a meplet on that, as flat a nose as you can get, because that's less likely to deflect and veer off if it hits bone. Again, you want something that penetrates, breaks bones, and digs in deep. So if you do have to shoot and kill a grizzly bear,
44 Magnum out of a 4-inch Smith & Wesson 629.
and you report that to your local wildlife department, they are going to have to get the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service involved. And that means that those people are going to come out and they are going to investigate and deal with you based on federal law and their regulations, not necessarily what your state is going to do. You might have a very understanding state game warden who just goes, hey, I can see your point, no problem, good thing you're still alive, too bad about the bear, but we'll just move on from here. The federals people, they might see it a little bit differently. The reason I mention this is you need to have more than one bear gun. Because, first of all, they're probably going to take the gun away from you initially as evidence for an investigation. They see this as a potential criminal matter until they can resolve it as not being a criminal matter. So one of their procedures is they get all the evidence, and your gun is one of those pieces of evidence. So that's going away in an evidence locker for however long it takes to get this undone. So you need to have a backup gun that you can go to because you're still going to be on your homestead, so you just still need to defend yourself from potentially other bears. Now, the other thing that we need to think about on the defense side of things is there's a lot of like these plastic bullet rounds and stuff like that. People do all sorts of things like, use slingshots, whatever. They haze the bears. If the bear comes in, they haze the bear, trying to make it an unpleasant experience. You need to be kind of circumspect about this. There's some research out there. I think it's been done by the University of Wyoming. There's some research out there which is starting to indicate that it may be counterproductive to haze the bears. Hazing the bears, they have found, may actually increase their aggressiveness towards humans, not their fearfulness, especially when we're talking grizzlies, not their fearfulness, but become more aggressive towards humans. The one thing, though, to remember, ultimately, at the end of it all, is you are in the bear's territory, not the other way around. This is the bear's house. You're just renting. Hey, thank you so much for taking your valuable time to watch us here at the LocaCarnivore. We really do appreciate it. I'm going to give you two thoughts. First one, as always, the ultimate act of resistance is insisting upon facts. And second of all, you can learn at least one thing from every person you meet. So pay attention.
Ha 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 ha!